What's up, guys? This is Next on Deck with your host, Dylan, and I got my dad back today, even though he's looking a little funky, but whatever. I'm glad he's supporting the team. As today, we're going to be looking over the 2020 Phillies season. If it happens, we'll see. I really hope the MLB comes back. The NBA is making its way back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we'll talk about that in the future, but I hope baseball's able to figure it out with the owners and the players because it just doesn't feel the same without baseball in the summer.
So today we're kind of just predicting the 2020 Philly season. So we're kind of just looking over, any the additions they made over the off season, and what they lost, what they need, how they're gonna do, and we're gonna have just predictions at the end. But we're just gonna kind of go over last season a little bit and see how that's gonna roll over to next season. So some of the new additions that the Phillies got that I was really excited about was Didi Gregorius signed a 1-year contract with us from the Yankees. Zach Wheeler, pitcher for the Mets, got on a 5-year deal, and we got in a trade. It's not as big, but I'm still excited about it because he's a solid power hitting outfielder. Kyle Garlick, and I think honestly, even though those first two moves were pretty exciting, I think this one is probably the most exciting. Is getting Joe Girardi, because I don't know how you felt about Gabe Kapler, but I did not. I was not very fond of him.
Well, Gabe Kapler definitely, he was a nice guy. I mean, we met him at spring training, but his style of managing is definitely different than kind of a little bit of the old school. And Joe Girardi's obviously a proven winner, winning the World Series with the Yankees in 2009, and just excited about kind of a blend of maybe some of the old school and some of the new, metrics and things like that. Hopefully 2020 will be a little bit better than 2019.
You say that, but to be honest with you, I know I'm a lot more positive than you when it comes to just supporting our teams in general. But last season we were 81 and 81. Little disappointed about that, but when you think about all the injuries we had and kind of some of the letdowns we had this season, like just people not performing as well, I think that's wasn't half bad of a record, honestly.
Now, I think that expectations with getting Bryce Harper specifically were a little bit bigger, but we obviously still had a ways to go. Lots of setbacks, so injuries. Our bullpen was decimated. Things like that were tough to recover from. So, I mean, hopefully we can stay in the positive. I think we might still be a year away from the postseason, but for right now, we'll take a 500 record.
So some other 2019 performers that we were excited about were I thought Gene Segura had a good season. I know you have other opinions of Segura. What do you
Well,
think
just
of him?
because he had come off a All-Star season, which he didn't have last year. He's closer to a 300 hitter or above, and I think looking ahead to 2020, he's already predicted to be maybe one of our more positives. In fact, he's on my fantasy team because he's lost some weight, maybe just a little bit, and maybe playing a different position if he ends up playing third base, which we believe he will. A little stress, taking that shortstop stress off will be good. But JT Realmuto, I think we should definitely mention him.
Yeah, for sure.
He was probably our MVP last year. Just if defense alone, he'd be worth it. But 25 homers, 83 ribbies, 275. We've got to lock him up.
I agree. Yeah.
Long term.
I know they were struggling about the arbitration deal, and they were like only 2.5 or 3 million off. You need to give his man the money. Like he deserves it. He out of anybody on this team, he deserves the money more than anyone. We also had some good performers, but then on the other hand, we had some big disappointments last year. I think the first one, it might be a little bit of a surprise, but I think Aaron Nola was a little bit of a disappointment, especially coming off the kind of season he had in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, he's considered the ace, and that's a lot of pressure. And, maybe with Zach Wheeler, behind him this year, and hopefully Jake Arrieta can rebound. Because Jake Arrieta would be one of my, disappointments. I know some of that he can't control with his injuries.
Right.
But, and Rhys Hoskins, he's probably the looking back and looking ahead, he's the biggest unknown. He's kind of like my colon this morning. I had a colonoscopy, and until they got in there and looked at it and said, everything looks okay, just in case them things they say don't make sense today.
Gotcha.
Recovery.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But
that makes sense.
But Hoskins, he was the man. He's still at 29 home runs, but he's honestly, I think we probably expect he and Harper to both hit 40. Now, of course, do the math. I know it's tough, but if we do an 81 game season, which I think we should do, players agree to a contract. I think we look at 20 from him, and hopefully he can hit a little bit better than 150 or whatever he hit last year.
The last disappointing guy I have down here is Maikel Franco, who we don't have anymore, which probably is a blessing in disguise. I know not many people were big fans of him. I personally thought he was a good third baseman, but it's hard to argue when he's hitting 234 and doesn't really drive in that many runs. So it's kind of tough, but I feel like he's a better fielder than Kingery was. Kind of going off track a little bit, but yeah. So I think Franco was another disappointment.
So I think to kind of close the book on the disappointments, I think the two of the biggest ones, one would be just the bullpen, which we talked about earlier, being a complete disaster. David Robertson getting hurt. Sir Anthony hurt, and looks like he's still continuing, and David Robertson as well. We had a AAA bullpen at best at the end, and can't function. But you could argue that the biggest disappointment was just the injury to Andrew McCutchen. So the little bit of time that he had out of leadoff role, his leadership, the pop that he can bring to that, I think we bring him back. So as we start to talk about 2020, the Corona situation has definitely been a blessing to McCutchen. He's going to be able to come back. He's going to be able to lead off right away. He's going to be healthy, and hopefully we'll have enough runs scored that we don't even care what our bullpen does. Because to me, that's I do not see a solution in the bullpen. I think we've got unless they shorten the games to 7 innings, which would help us as well.
I don't know if that will.
I don't know if you're more likely to get the corona if you play too long and you get tired, but a 6 or 7 inning game might be really good for the Phillies coming up this year.
Yeah, so as we go into 2020, kind of looking at like what we have now, what the team is. So we lost, I think our biggest loss was Cesar Hernandez, who you could argue is probably one of our best hitters last year. Another guy that we'll be missing this year is Brad Miller, who is my favorite guy off the bench. We'll be losing him, and you could argue the most important one, very late addition to the team, but in the games that he did play, I believe he made a real big impact, was Corey Dickerson, who is a very underrated player, and with the absence of McCutchen and just some of the other outfield injuries we had, was super huge for us. So it's a bummer to see him go to the Marlins, which I don't know, our division rival, but we'll miss him. But kind of looking who we got back though this year. So we added back Vince Velasquez, who I believe has potential. He's a little shaky, but I think he can do it. I feel like Arrieta can kind of help him, kind of supervise him, get him into that role a little bit. 2 bullpen guys that we were signed back. I know you don't like one of them, Jose Alvarez, who I actually liked, but you were not very fond of when he got called in.
Inconsistent, and it's, he's a good left-handed arm, and Adam Morgan is as well, and getting him back will help. But I'm sorry, the bullpen's still a sore subject with me, Dylan. It's kind of like surgeries and things like that. I'd rather not talk as much about the bullpen and talk about some of the fielding, because especially if we're going to a 6-inning game, as I propose, we will definitely, we definitely have some pop in the lineup. So what do you think the lineup will look like, kind of starting off? Because I know there's been some talk about, especially if you go with, kind of the new style with putting the, on base percentage, high players up first, Riamolto leading off, but I still like McCutchen with him coming back on time to kind of start us off.
Well, I was just gonna go over that, but I think that's what Kapler was trying to do. I know at some point in the year the on base percentage theory where you put the highest at the top and then you just go down. But obviously, it didn't work to an extent. I did not like that theory. I don't think it went well. But kind of what I'm thinking for the lineup. So, got to have McCutchen at leadoff for sure in center. He was great. He was pretty good leadoff guy before he got injured. So, I think he holds his place there. Kind of at number 2, thinking Gene Segura stays there. I know they tried him out at lower in the lineup, but I did not like that as much because I felt like he was one of the higher averages on the team. And even though he was kind of inconsistent and didn't really find his touch, I feel like number 2 is still a comfy spot for him. So kind of thinking the 3 to 5 spot, I think we all know the 3. It's going to be Realmuto, Harper, and Hoskins. Depending on which order they are actually put in, that's up to Girardi. But in my opinion, I think Realmuto should go 3, Harper 4, Hoskins 5. Hoskins, that's kind of what the cleanup spot is for driving in runs, but Hoskins didn't do as good of a job as he needed to last year. So I kind of think Harper should be at 4 and then Hoskins 5. Even though it's going to be 3 right-handed hitters in a row, I still think that's what they need to do. What's your thoughts on 3 to 5?
I definitely think Harper's left-handed, right?
Yes, Harper is left-handed, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that's some combination of that. I think it's definitely going to be the go.
Mm-hmm.
You got it.
So I see that you wrote your little lineup there, and I'm kind of agreeing with him. So he has Didi at 6, and then Kingery at 7, and then Hainsley or Quinn, whoever starts, at 8, and then obviously pitcher at 9. I think that they should start Hainsley over Quinn because he had a way better season than Quinn. I know Quinn's quick. If he can get on base, that's going to be useful, but he didn't even hit 200.
And he's hurt all the time.
Yeah, and he has made of glass, like you said. So yeah, I think Adam Hainsley's a good spot for 8. So kind of looking at the pitching rotation, so obviously Noel's going to be 1.
Right.
Probably Wheeler at 2, Arrieta at 3. Then it gets interesting after that, because we just have a bunch of mid-level guys. So there's Velasquez that could be there. There's Eflin, Pivetta.
Right.
Do you see anyone else filling those?
I think
spots?
Eflin's probably the most likely to make a jump at 4. You heard some talk about the way that he was asked to pitch last year, and with the new pitching coach, I think Brian Price, I think is his name. I think that's going to help a lot. And after that, I think it's really Velasquez / Pivetta. Hopefully one of those guys will step up this year. Otherwise, it could be somebody out of that was in the minors last year. We are missing a left-handed arm, so
yeah. And I was going to mention that Cole Irvin made some appearances in the majors last year. Mostly in the bullpen, but if they could really develop him into a starting pitcher, I think he would be a really good 4 or 5 pitcher. So then kind of looking towards the end of the year, I believe that Spencer Howard is one guy that could really bolster our bullpen a lot. If he can make that push, don't want to rush it as much. He's still a young guy. He was just in Double-A last year. I believe he still is, actually. So he might get to the majors by then, but might be a stretch. Another guy that might be a stretch too is Alec Baum, who we are both very excited for him to come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we think future maybe another Chris Bryant would be great if he could turn into a guy like that. Great power hitting third baseman. Third base has always been weak for the Phillies since Schmidt. It seems like we haven't actually had a good third baseman since Schmidt.
Yeah, we had Roland for a little bit, but he wasn't able to stay. And I mean, Baum, depending on Hoskins too, he could be a move to first base.
Right. Yeah.
And
then when Hoskins play, probably left field, right?
Yeah, or we move him on.
Yeah, that's true. I guess, well...
DH.
Yeah, I was going to say...
the DH is coming.
DH is coming for the National League, so that
I think
could be where Hoskins go.
They proposed that for this year. That could be a way for, bring Baum up and let him, because if they don't have a minor league, I mean, are these guys
Mm-hmm.
just in the spring training complex getting work? Would it pay to bring them up a little bit earlier? Are they allowed to have more people on the roster? So he could come up and play, and then he and Hoskins could rotate into the DH. Although I think Jay Bruce, who we haven't mentioned yet, if he was able to get regular at bats, I think he's our biggest home run threat, and I definitely think he fits perfectly as our as a DH for us.
For sure. And I think one of the other September call-ups, which he's been, up and down between the major leagues. I think Nick Williams
Yeah.
is an option. I don't really know what to think of Nick Williams. I don't know if he's always going to be, like a 210, 220 hitter, or if he just hasn't got enough at-bats yet. We'll see. But, again,
We've got to root for him, though, because he was arguably our biggest name signer at spring training last year. So to tell we maybe didn't reach expectations.
Yeah.
But he's a good guy, and he's always been a good autograph signer. So now that Dylan's no longer a kid, and it's a little bit more work to get autographs signed, we appreciate that.
Yeah, and too bad if he was as good of an autograph signer as a hitter, maybe you could crack the starting
There
lineup.
should be a correlation.
Yeah, there should be. But thankfully there's not, because then Harper we wouldn't have signed. We wouldn't have thrown all that money.
So Dylan, what do you think the overall season looked like? What's your expectation? So do we go? You said we might make a prediction. Do we go by an 81 game season? So do we go half season? Are we how many games over 500? Do we make the playoffs? That kind of stuff.
So I think we should probably think that. I think we should probably go off of an 81 game season, because it seems the most likely scenario that's going to happen right now. So the Phillies they always have a stretch where they seem unstoppable, and that's usually halfway through the season. But then they kind of die down. So if we have an 81 game season, that stretch could be the end of the season and have momentum into the playoffs.
Right.
So kind of the thing I was looking at earlier is 2019 we had the 5th toughest schedule in the major leagues, which it definitely seemed like it, considering we played the Braves and Nationals all the time.
Right.
But this year we only have the 13th toughest. Now we don't know what games are going to be cut out or how this whole schedule thing is going to work. But I feel like either way we're still going to have an easier schedule. So I could easily see the Phillies sliding in as a second wild card. Whether we win that wild card game or not is going to depend if Aaron Nola can, kind of. I'm thinking probably the Nationals might be the other wild card team we're playing, or even the Braves. But I feel like the Braves, whoever doesn't win the division, our division, we're probably going to face. So I could see us beating we could beat either team in a 1-game series, but it's going to be up to how Aaron Nola shows up that day, and if we can hit for him.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. I think the fan in me really wants to believe that we can make the playoffs this year, and there's a part of me, the part that's been hurt by I was around, you weren't there, Junior, but the lean years of the 80s and most of the 90s are pretty rough. So always enjoyed watching them. Didn't try to set the bar too high. Nice thing is, because the number of games this year may be an odd number, we can't match last year's record at 500. So we're either going to be a game above 500 or below. So that could be a difference. But I'm hoping for a few games over 500 and, right on the cusp of a wild card. I think we have a potential, and, we could possibly have a good rotation. I like my chances of a 1-game playoff with Aaron Nola pitching.
Sure.
But I really think, as I said before, it's going to come down to, kind of who stays healthy, and I think we got a shot.
Yeah, for sure. And it's obviously been a while since we've been in the playoffs. I think it's been 7-8 years now. It seems like 2008 was
12, 2020 minus 2008 is 12, Dylan.
But that is not the last time we made the playoffs. Now, is it?
No, 2020 minus 2011 is 9. The correct answer,
But-
9 years.
But didn't we make the playoffs Did we make
No.
the playoffs in 2012?
No.
We didn't.
No.
Wow, that's a first. I don't
Right.
really usually mess up that much. Good
9.
good one, buddy.
Yeah.
So
It's the headband.
the headband's giving you the knowledge.
It is.
Okay, yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, so it's obviously been a while, so it'd be nice if they could, even if they make the wild card, even if they win, I don't see them winning any series against either the Dodgers or the Braves, or I guess who would come out of the Cubs maybe come out of
Could
the
be.
Central Division.
Cardinals are always there.
Cardinals,
The
yeah,
Brewers are
Cardinals.
tough.
Yeah, so that's kind of our overlook of the Philly season. Drop a comment if you want me to do another team or like another sport. I'm kind of thinking the Sixers might be up next, considering that we're Philly fans. But it was nice having you back on the podcast today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Glad you can make it. And thanks again for tuning in next on deck, and we'll see you next week.